alive in the 80s? Can you raise your hands? If you were alive in the 80s. 10 full years. I was born in 89, so I'm going to claim it. I was alive in the 80s. Well, my dad being an 80s teenager, there were things that I got to experience, I was privy to. I learned about culture from the 80s that was neat, and I've always had a fascination with the 80s. But when I was a kid, I would watch reruns of a show called A-Team. Anybody familiar with A-Team? I know everybody who's too young has no idea what I'm talking about unless they saw the movie, and that's not the same thing. Am I right? But the show, the A-Team. And anybody remember a popular phrase that Hannibal would say? Besides my dad. Anybody know what Hannibal would say? Thank you. I love it when a plan comes together. Now, it didn't matter what obstacle, what threat they were facing, what mission they were on. For some reason, this amazing A-Team was able to put together a plan that would always work, right? You guys remember at the end of the episode, I love it when a plan comes together. And that has a really nice ring to it, doesn't it? I wish life was a lot like TV. I wish we could go into whatever obstacle we had in front of us, whatever opportunity we had in front of us, and we could just put a plan together that would work without fail. I think that would be great. But has anybody else, like me, found out that our plans don't always work out, right? And if you have, raise your hands. Have you ever had a plan that you just thought was the perfect plan and it did not work out? I have done that many times. And so I think all of us, whether you're a free-spirited person or you're a really organized person and you like things a certain way, we all have plans for things like our careers. We have plans for our education. We have plans for our families. Now that I have kids, I'm putting plans together for my kids. I have 3 beautiful babies, a 4-year-old boy, a 2-year-old boy, and a 4-month-old girl. So, I'm learning a whole new dynamic to life. But we have plans that we put together for our lives. And many of us do something called New Year's resolutions, and those never work, right? Those are almost like a waste of time. So we all know what it's like to put a plan together and it not work out to some extent. Whether it was something serious, whether it was something light and fun, we've had plans that didn't work out. But in the Bible, we have an incredible example of this. If you look in Luke chapter 8, verse 22 through 25, we see that Jesus is with his disciples, and he lays out a simple plan for them. We're going to do this one thing. So in verse 22, it says, one day, Jesus said to the disciples, let's cross over to the other side of the lake. Doesn't that sound simple? Uncomplicated. We're over here, and we need to get over there. So the disciples know what to do. They go and they get in a boat, and they just start out on the lake. Right? Simple enough. Makes sense. We want to get to the other side. Instead of walking around, we know how to use a boat. Let's go. So as they sailed across, Jesus settled down for a nap. But soon, a fierce storm came on the lake. The boat was filling with water, and they were in real danger. I want to emphasize that. This was not just a little bit of water. This was enough. They thought they were going to sink. They were in real danger. So the disciples went and woke him up, shouting, Master, Master, we're going to drown. Do you hear how they're prophesying and speaking to what will happen? Even though they really don't know what's going to happen. They don't know what's about to happen. But they're saying, we are going to drown. See, they have no doubt in their minds that the end is near, their time on earth is done, and this ship is going down. When Jesus woke up, he rebuked the wind and the raging waves. Suddenly the storm stopped, and all was calm. Then he asked them, where is your faith? The disciples were terrified and amazed. Who is this man? They asked each other. When he gives a command, even the wind and the waves obey him. Now, I think there's a few things that we can learn about our plans when we look at this passage of Scripture. And the first thing I want to point out is in verse 22, it says, one day, Jesus said to his disciples, let's go to the other side of the lake. One day is coming when you will not be prepared. You might think exactly, you know exactly how this day's going to go. You know exactly how events are going to transpire. You know how you're going to get from point A to point B to point C. You're going to wake up. Your day is going to progress exactly how you expected. You're going to go to sleep, and everything will be exactly as it's meant to be. But how many of us know that we will have a one day that is not something we could prepare for? Our family has lost my grandma, your mom, your sister, my aunt. I never expected, with all my planning, with all of my goals, with all of my desires in life, that my aunt would not meet my daughter. I got the privilege of sharing with her that we were going to have a little baby girl before she passed. But I never expected that to happen. I knew, one day we're all going to pass. One day we're all going to die. But I didn't know it would be this soon. Sorry, I have to make it real. I want to connect the dots and make it real. This isn't something that I'm disconnected from. This is something I've lived. This is something I've experienced. All of us have had a one day that ruined our day. Am I right? All of us have encountered one of those days. And so the unknown for these disciples was a storm that was unlike anything they had seen before. They were not prepared. The unknown for us is something we cannot foresee. It's something that we cannot expect. You could do all the planning that you want, but there are events and there are obstacles and there are attacks that are going to come in our lives that we will not see coming. And death, for me, was just one of those examples. I've been saying since I was a teenager, I'm okay with dying because everybody's going to die at some point. The Bible says, it is appointed once for man to die. And so I was like, okay, then I'm just going to die one day. But when death comes knocking and you start losing family members, you start losing friends, it's not something you can plan for. It's not something you can foresee. And so these disciples, they're encountering this storm that they were never prepared for, that they never saw coming. This was supposed to be an easy trip in a boat across the lake. And so it will surprise you. The second thing I want you to know about our plans, about the unknown, is you don't know what you don't know. I know it sounds really simple. I am the worst victim of this. You don't know what you don't know. I have had so many moments in my life when I thought that I knew everything. And probably, I don't know what age, 16, I was probably expert on it all, right? And that's half my life ago now. So, I was a genius. I had everything figured out at 16 years old, and I'm sure many of us were very similar to that. You knew better than your parents. You knew better than your teachers. You knew better than your friends. You knew everything. And so at some point in life, the unknown is going to come along, and you're going to realize there's a lot that I don't know, and I didn't know that I didn't know, right? And so the unknown is something that is outside of our knowledge or experience. For some of these disciples of Jesus, they were experienced fishermen and sailors. So I think sometimes we can read this and we can put ourselves in their seat and we look at it from our own perspective. And we think, for me, I've been on a boat a few times, but not very much. So I have no idea what I would do if I got out on a lake, on the ocean, in a boat, and a storm came. I don't know. I have no idea what I would do. I would try to do something, but I have no idea what I would do. But some of these disciples, they were experienced. And I'm willing to bet that some of them had experienced sailing through a storm or being on a boat through a storm. But with all of that experience, with all of that knowledge, with all the training and all the years they had put into it, this was something that was outside of their experience. And so in that way, it was unknown to them. The third thing I want to point out is that your plans do not factor in the setbacks. Right? Am I right? We don't factor in setbacks. Everything is smooth sailing for us. All of it. It's smooth sailing. I'm going to go to this college, and I'm going to marry this person, and I'm going to have this many kids, and I'm going to start this business, or I'm going to accomplish this thing. I'm going to do this. And it's just smooth sailing for us. We cannot factor in setbacks. For us, it would be detrimental to us. We would literally shrivel up, sit down, ball up on the floor, whatever, and just be paralyzed to death. We would just wait until death came and took us if we knew that there were setbacks that were in front of us. Am I right? And so Jesus, he asked them to go on this boat and take him across the lake. And they're thinking, we know exactly how to do that. Let's go. But they did not factor in the storm. They didn't plan for a storm that they were never even prepared for. Am I right? So much to the point that they believed they were going to die. And we don't plan for that. I don't wake up any single day and think, well, this is my day to die. Does anybody do that? No, we don't do that. And so I think all of us in the room, how many of you are parents? Yeah? How many of you have helped with babies before, even if you're not a parent? Okay. So as a parent, now that I got 3 kids, I have found out as much as we prepare, my wife and I, we get diapers, we get wipes, we got packs of them. We got the mat to lay the baby on. We've got changes of clothes. We can have 3 changes of clothes, 4 changes of clothes. It does not matter. As much as we plan and we prepare and we get ready, when your kid has a blowout diaper, there are not enough diapers. There are not enough wipes. There are not enough mats. You don't have a change of clothes. They don't have enough changes of clothes. It's everywhere. It's going down their legs. It's getting on you. And that's funny, but it's just an easy example for us to get that we try. We try the best we can to foresee, to expect, to anticipate what we're going to need, when we're going to need it. And there's instances just as simple as that we're not ready for. And life will throw us curveballs and setbacks that we didn't plan for. You planned to go to college, you applied, you did everything right, but you never factored in that they would send you a rejection letter. I was going to say a resignation letter. That's not right. A rejection letter. You planned to start a business, but you did not factor in the setback of the economy crashing. You planned to go to the doctor for a routine visit, but you never factored in a setback that you would get a death sentence. Those are things we don't I didn't factor in that I would get cancer. I didn't factor in these things. And so what do we do when life doesn't go according to our plan? All of a sudden, life is off script. It's off what we expected. What do we do about it? And in this story, when we look at the disciples, what I see happening to them, their response or their reaction to experiencing this unknown, unexpected storm is they became overwhelmed. They were overwhelmed. I think what I see with them is they're being gripped by fear. They think they're going to die. They're stressed out because I'm sure they've tried everything in their power, everything in their ability, everything in their toolbox to try to solve and fix this problem and avoid their ship going down. I see that they are overwhelmed with doubt. How many of us have been overwhelmed with doubt before? That God gave us a word. He spoke into our lives. I know it was true, but my circumstances are everything opposite of what God told me His promise was. And so we, just like the disciples, become overwhelmed. And in the midst of that overwhelm, they look over at Jesus, their master, the one who said, hey, let's go to the other side. And what is he doing? He's napping. I don't know about you, but when life's falling apart, I'm not resting. I don't get enough sleep. I don't feel rested. And they look over and they see Jesus napping. And they cry out to him, we are about to die. Like, what is wrong with you? How are you sleeping right now? How are you at peace right now? When everything around us is turmoil. When we are about to die. And I believe that many of us react the exact same way. We, in the midst of what is unknown to us, in a season of the unknown, in a season where we're being attacked and we're experiencing a storm, what we tend to do is we look up to heaven and we cry out to God, "How can you be sleeping while life takes me out?" Is that not how we feel? We feel like God is sleeping on his part of the promise. We feel like he's sleeping on his part of the job. We feel like he's distant. We don't hear him. We don't see him. We feel like we're not experiencing him. And it feels like he has abandoned us. But what I want to do is I want to take the next few minutes to look at the power in the text. In Luke chapter 8, verse 24, when they shout at Jesus and say, "Master, we're going to drown," Jesus wakes up and he rebuked the wind and the raging waves, and suddenly the storm stopped and all was calm. What you perceive and what I perceive as Jesus sleeping in the storm is him being unmoved by the unknown. He stands outside of the things that we experience, but he is with us in it. He's not moved. He stands outside of what we experience, but he is also with us in it. I didn't even know I was going to say that today. That must be the Holy Spirit. But we have to understand God is not moved by the things that shake our world. God is not turned upside down by the things that turn us upside down. He's not hurt by the things that hurt us. And I could go on, but you see what I'm saying. The reason that it feels like God is maybe taking a nap and not taking care of you, the reason why maybe it feels like he's distant in a season when you need him closest of all, is because we're wrapped up in turmoil while he is staying the course. And so Jesus, when we look at this passage, we see that Jesus had already said, like many of us have experienced with the promises of God, he's already said, we are going to the other side. When you read verse 22, there's no question about it. There's no if. Maybe if we get in this boat, we could go and arrive at the other side, and then maybe we can go on from there. There's none of that. It's let's go to the other side. It's a done deal for Jesus when he states it. But for us, we allow the circumstances to cause us to doubt what he has already said to us. Let me encourage you today, never let the presence of a storm cause you to doubt the presence of God. Never let the presence of a storm cause you to doubt the presence of God. He is still there with you in the midst of that storm. God has promised in Hebrews 13:5, we read that God said, "I will never leave you. I will never forsake you." In another translation, it says that he will not fail us or abandon us. Those words are very powerful. They're very true. And we have to remind ourselves that God has not abandoned us, and he will not fail us in our time of need. The missing piece of what we need is the Prince of Peace. In the unknown, you are not alone. Jesus is in the boat going through the storm with you. That's one of the most powerful things you could see in this verse, is that when the disciples were experiencing this storm and they saw Jesus napping, Jesus was there. And when you're going through a storm in your life and when you're experiencing the worst thing imaginable, Jesus is still there. So my first point, remember who is with you. Remember who is with you. So in Luke chapter 8, verse 25, we go on and we see that Jesus, after he calms the storm, he turns to the disciples and he's asked them, "Where is your faith?" Now that the storm is gone, we need to take a moment and breathe and figure something out together. Where is your faith? The disciples were terrified and amazed, but Jesus is saying, where is your faith? So for me, I had a personal, I've had multiple experiences at this point. I think all of us could say we didn't anticipate COVID happening, right? Did anybody factor that in to your plans? Did anybody factor getting laid off from a job? Or, I didn't plan on working as an essential worker through COVID. That wasn't something I anticipated. There's a lot of things that we weren't ready for. But a couple years ago, my wife and I went through some hard times when it came to our finances, our jobs, and just different things that were going on in our lives at the time. And I went to a pastor that I really trusted, I really respected. I still do. This is not a setup to say I trusted him and he let me down. This is somebody I trusted. I went to him to get advice, to just express how I felt, what I was going through, my turmoil, my storm. And he said to me one of the most wise pieces of advice I've ever received in my life. He said, you trust in your plan more than you trust in God. And there was nothing I could say. As soon as he said it, I knew it was true. Because as soon as things started changing for my plan, then I was all concerned. Then I was worried. Then I was scrapping and I was racing and I was trying to figure out and I was trying to hustle and all of these things. And so he just simply pointed out, listening to me, hearing what was going on, he just simply pointed out, you trust your plans more than you trust God. Never let your failed plans cause you to doubt the promises of God. At that moment, that's when I realized I had put my faith in something that was not faithful. I had put my trust in something that couldn't be trustworthy. That something that had shortcomings, something that had weakness, myself, because they were my plans. But as soon as I shifted my faith and I put it in the one who is faithful, as soon as I shifted my faith and I put it in the one that could be trustworthy, the one who knows what will and will not happen, the one who sees what is going to come that I can't anticipate, the one who gave me the promise in the first place and will be the one to see it through. When I put my faith in him, that changed everything. How often have we tried to fulfill the promises of God with the plans of man? How often? How often have we done it in our own lives, in our own families? How often have we done it in our own churches? Oh man, if we had this much budget, if we had the money, if we could buy this thing, if we could send out these mailers, if we could do this event, if we could get this many volunteers, if we bought the right food and had a meal, and we start to strategize and we put together our own plan of how we can accomplish the purposes of God and fulfill the promise of God in our own ability. And that's often when we get hit with the unknown and find out that we had our faith misplaced. Proverbs 19:21 tells us, you can make many plans, but the Lord's purpose will prevail. Or, in some translations, many are the plans of man, but the Lord's purpose will prevail. We have so many plans. Many, many plans. And, and I've gone to the extreme of that. I have gone to the extreme of planning to where I had every minute of my day, of my week, of my month calculated. I've gone to the extreme. Some of us maybe haven't gone that far, but I've tried it, and it does not work. Now, and I'm not trying to say plans are bad, but I want you to get the idea of where are we placing our faith? Is it in my plan or is it in Jesus? God's promise cannot be fulfilled by your plans. It can't be fulfilled by your plans. Is this God's church or is it your church? Is it his ministry or is it your ministry? Is it his business or is it your business? Come on. Are they his children or are they your children? Is this God's temple or is it mine? Do I worship at the throne of what I want Or do I worship at the throne of God's will, of his kingdom? Point number 2, God will do what only he can do. In the midst of this storm, you're going to try everything possible, and it will not work. You will do everything in your ability, everything in your power, and you will find that it will not work. And those are the times, and those are the seasons, and those are the moments when we realize that God will do what only he can do. Amen. So what can we do to change our posture? What can we do to shift our faith and place it on Jesus? It's an easy thing to say, fix your eyes on Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. It's easy to say that, but what does it look like to actually do it? I want to walk us through that for a moment. In Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 through 6, I'm sure some of you know what verse that is. It's one of my favorite verses, especially because I am forgetful. God will do something in my life, and I will move forward, and I will forget, and I will do my way again, and then he will show up, and I will remember, and then I will forget, and then I will do my way, and it will fail, and he will show up again. Do you get what I'm saying? And so this verse for me has been meaningful to me to go back to over and over and over again. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. So I am not a poker player, but I am aware enough of how, there's a moment when somebody's playing poker where they are confident enough in the hand that they've been dealt that they will go all in and risk everything and gamble everything to win. You guys familiar with that? Whether you play or you don't play, I think all of us are aware that sometimes there's a moment when a player has the opportunity where they can go all in. And I believe that what we are to do when we place our faith on Jesus is we are going all in with Jesus. We're not dividing our faith. We're not, holding back and reserving some of it and saying, I get what you're saying, Caleb. I hear what you're saying. Okay, I'm going to shift my faith. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I've been trusting these plans. Those plans didn't work out. Yes, I believe. I'm putting my faith in Jesus. He's going to do what I can't do. But then on the side, you're still tinkering. And on the side, you're still working your own little plans, and you're still trying to make things happen, and you're still networking, and you're still making the calls, and you're still writing things out. It's easy. I've done it so many times. But what I'm encouraging you to do today, and this is my third point, is go all in with Jesus. Amen. Risk it all. You have nothing to lose because the day will come when you can't help yourself. So you literally have nothing to lose to go all in with Jesus. I had a friend that I got to know. I used to be on staff at a church in Tulsa, and I had a friend that I started to get to know. And every few months he would show up. He'd go to service a couple weeks, and then eventually he would talk to me, and he would say, this thing, it's just not working for me. He's like, I don't know. He's like, I feel like I'm trying, and it's just not working for me. And he would be gone. I just wouldn't see him. He wouldn't be around. I wouldn't know what's going on with him. And then one day he'd show up, and he's like, I need Jesus, and nothing's working in my life. And he would want to make a change, and then a couple weeks later, he's gone again. Or a month later, he's gone again. And eventually, there was one time he came up to me. It's got to be the third or fourth time. And it was the same cycle being repeated over and over again. New circumstances, new difficulties, new challenges. But it was the same cycle. And he comes up to me, and he's telling me about it. I just stopped him. I said, look, I'm going to tell you something that's difficult to hear, but you have to hear this. I said, you're not really giving it a chance. You're just trying Jesus. It's kind of like this coat. I've got some clothes that don't fit me anymore. Every once in a while, I've got some jackets I really like. So every once in a while, I'll get one out, and I'm like, I'll put it on, and I'm like, yeah, that doesn't fit anymore. I'm trying it out, trying to just see, can I wear this right now? That's what some of us do sometimes. We just keep going through these cycles, and when things hit rock bottom, we go to Jesus. When things hit rock bottom, we go to Jesus. Or when things hit rock bottom, we eject from the church. We eject from our faith. You know, we have these kind of reactions. It's just cycles over and over again because all we're doing is we're trying out Jesus. We just want to see how it fits, but we're not sure if that's how we want to look. I don't know if I want to look like a Christian. I don't want to look like a fool. You know, I don't want to step out and look like an idiot. We have pride in that area sometimes. And so why does this matter? And I shared this with him, and I wasn't the one that was always there for him. There were other people in our church that were always there for this guy. But eventually, he really did go all in with Jesus, and it totally changed his life. It didn't mean that everything was perfect. It didn't mean that all the storms ceased. There were things that he was going through that stopped, but there's new things that he faced. But now he's all in with Jesus regardless of what's happening. And he's a completely different person because of it. Amen? But why does it matter that we go all in with Jesus? Because if you don't get this, you're going to feel overwhelmed and stressed and hopeless and full of doubt and depression and anxiety every time that things don't work out your way. You're going to get mad. You're going to be frustrated. You're going to hate people. You're going to despise. You're going to be jealous. All of these things can overwhelm and consume you. Fear, death, sickness, because you put your faith in the wrong place. But if you get this, if you understand that we need to go all in with Jesus, you'll have the confidence that the dealer, who is God, has already stacked the deck in your favor. Yeah, I kind of referenced poker. You didn't know I was going to go back to it. We're playing cards with an enemy that's already lost. You're playing cards with a circumstance and a storm that has already been calmed. Jesus is working on our behalf and in our favor when we don't see it. And the dealer, God's been dealing the cards. He's, oh yeah, I know. Devil wants to put some pressure on you. The enemy wants you to doubt. These storms want to rock and shake your faith. The sand wants to bring you down. But I'm the one dealing the cards. They ain't got nothing in their hand. I have stacked all the cards in your favor. So here's my encouragement to you. Stop counting the cards. The promises have already been dealt. And the outcome is already fixed. It's already fixed in your favor. The amazing thing is, in this story, we see that the disciples, had they just been patient and waited and just trusted in Jesus, the same outcome was going to happen. Whether they were pulling the ropes and moving the sails and trying to dump water overboard and considering who's the first person we throw over to keep us from sinking, before they started figuring all that out, it was already determined. Jesus knew this storm's going to happen. I'm going to speak to it, and it will cease. There is a time frame. There is an end date to the storm that you're facing. It will not endure forever. Morning will come. Joy will come. Victory will come. It's already been dealt. So like David, I believe we can say, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will not fear evil. For you, God, Jesus, are with me. Yeah, I like it says it this way in the NLT. Even when I walk through the dark valley, I will not be afraid, for you are close beside me. It's amazing to me that someone like David that lived thousands of years ago, with all the things he experienced, all the real battles that he faced in life, came to this realization. And yet we continue to try to chart our own path and try to navigate our own futures without God. All we have to do is put our faith in God and know that he is close by. He is near to us in those times of need. So the upside of the unknown, which was the title of my message, the upside of the unknown is that we have an ace in the hole. It's Jesus. So if you would stand with me right now, I'm closing. This is it. I used to preach really long, like an hour and 20 minutes. I don't do that stuff anymore. I believe God's given me a word for you. I believe you got it. It ain't going to take 30 more minutes for me to figure it out for you. God's the one who's got you. So look at the screen. I think we're going to put it up on the screen. I want you to say this with me to internalize and to just put our faith in it. I am going all in with Jesus. Come on, let's believe it. Let's speak it with our soul. I am going all in with Jesus. It doesn't matter what the storm is that I'm facing. I am going all in with Jesus. It doesn't matter what the doctor has said. I am going all in with Jesus. It doesn't matter if there's a new variant of COVID. I am going all in with Jesus. It doesn't matter what my boss said at my job the other day. I am going all in with Jesus. It doesn't matter if I lost my lifelong friend and we don't speak anymore. I am going all in with Jesus. My children hate me and they won't speak to me anymore. I am going all in with Jesus. Isn't that an easier way to live? I think that's so much better than trying to trust and put my faith in myself. I will let me down, right? Say, I will let me down. You don't want to, but you will. But God will never let you down. Let's take a moment to pray.